evacuation level right there, we're at 215 microns on the chiller. This has been on decay test for 24 hours. It started, or more than 24 hours at this point, more like 30 hours. But it started at 70 microns and rose to 215 for like a 5 micron per hour rate, which is well below the, I think it's 100 that York requires. So my evacuation setup didn't change from this whole thing. So I used this vacuum pump with 2 hoses on the 1/4-inch service ports. It would be better to tie into this side, but I didn't have these trees at that time. So I evacuated through these with this mid-seated slightly, with a cap on this side, mid-seated, and that's how I pulled down to 70 microns. After that, you front seat both service valves, and then that isolates the chiller so you can start your decay test. You take note of your initial micron level, and then in 8 to 24 hours you take your ending micron level. During that time, when this is front seated, you've got communication from these 2 ports. So you can actually start an evacuation on your charging rig. So basically, your charging rig would start here, and basically you adapt from 3/4 to 1/2 inch. Have this hose, it just comes around here, over. I use this as a union, and then it comes over to my recovery machine. So this is just pulling an evacuation straight through here over to this hose, and then we've got this side port where we're measuring the microns. So this is coming over to the recovery machine, and then it enters here, or it comes along here. Then here it actually starts pulling a vacuum on this hose, which pulls a vacuum on my manifold, which is hooked up to 2 25-pound tanks. Then that continues into the recovery machine, into a fresh filter dryer, then into the suction port. I rotate this valve as much as I can to try to get that cleared out. Then the discharge of my recovery machine actually comes along this skinny hose and over to this side of the evacuation. That black hose goes to the vacuum pump. So it comes through this valve, and starts evacuating the discharge side of my machine. And then it evacuates kind of this side of the charging process. You come down to this valve where I have a side port to measure my pressure and my microns on this side of the system. Got 148 on this one. So we come through the ball valve into a sight glass. I'm going to use this in the initial vapor charge of the system to get it up to 32 or 40 degrees. I want to make sure I'm not charging any liquid in there. So I have a sight glass on the inlet where I'm going to start vapor. Then it comes over to my big tank, and this tank has these really nice valves where you can use liquid or vapor on the same port, and it's got 2 of them. So that basically, yeah, it comes up to this valve and it's evacuating up to this point. This is all hooked up to the evacuation rig. Then this is the only hose that I couldn't evacuate because it's not attached to any of the vacuum. So this one comes around here, comes around the back, and then over to this tank. So basically I tightened it on this side on the main tank, and I had it loose on this tank port, and I opened my gas valve here and just purged refrigerant to clear that hose of air. The way I'm going to start this is basically I'm going to open these 2 valves. Like I closed this back down. Oh no, wait, it was this one. I closed this one back down after I purged it. So I'm going to open both of these valves. That way they're basically sharing the vapor side. Then I'm going to open this vapor valve so that all of that vapor from both tanks can come into my sight glass where I can monitor for liquid refrigerant or anything like that, and then into the chiller. Once I have that opened up, I'm gonna, well actually before that I have to isolate my vacuum rig. I'm probably gonna close this valve, remove this. I've got a Schrader core in there. That's one of the few Schrader cores I've got. I'll backseat that, remove this hose probably, close this port, and then I can start my gas charging into the system, and I can actually just keep the evacuation going on the rest of the rig because I can isolate everything else. I can isolate my micron gauge, isolate my vacuum setup at this core removal tool, and yeah, that's actually what I'll do now. So Let's try not to blow my vacuum pump up. So I'm gonna start with cracking these, and you can see it actually shot up in microns when I did that. So you always want to crack your ball valves before you close them all the way. Wait for them to come down. And actually I won't be able to evacuate because I've only actually got one power cord. So, well, actually I'll keep evacuating it, and then I won't have to swap it over until I need my recovery machine. So they've equalized out, so I'm gonna go ahead and close my vacuum. And that's my decay right now, which this kind of decay is to be expected because we've got a big old 1/2-inch hose here that's got refrigerant just completely, it's been used for refrigerant, all sorts of stuff. So you've got refrigerant in that hose, you're gonna decay. The key is that it doesn't shoot up to like 1,000 microns immediately, because then you know that you're probably in trouble. You got a loose connection. The reason I'm pulling an evacuation on all this is that I want to make sure that under vacuum none of my stuff leaks, because I'm going to pull a vacuum with the recovery machine. So if I pull a vacuum on a leaking system, you're going to pull in air into your brand new chiller, and you don't want to do that. So at this point, I've isolated my vacuum pump. I can actually start with opening my vapor valve. So I'm going to open this one first. So now this hose has vapor from this tank, comes around the tank over to this port. So I'm going to open this one, and then over to this one. So this is where I start opening up towards the system. But before I open the side with the system on it, I'm actually going to isolate my micron gauge. I'm not going to pull it off. I'm just going to, there's a Schrader in there, so that'll isolate the micron gauge away from the system. And then my pressure gauge has no problem with pressure, so I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to open up my vapor port. The reason I can open it up is because we've got this isolated, so it's going to get gas onto this side, but not past this point. So we've actually got the vacuum staying running. So I'm going to open this valve slowly. Actually, I'm going to watch this. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. Well, it matters a little bit. So I'm going to try, let me see if I can slightly rotate this. There we go. All right, let's open this valve and watch this. I started with the cracked valve just to get it to equalize pressure so I don't shoot anything. So now this is completely open. This is completely open. This is completely open. Gas is being shared all the way up to this point. Oh no, actually this point. So you can see now we're at 78 psi. So now I can take off my micron gauge without any kind of fear that I'm going to be allowing air into the system, because this is all pressurized. And just for sanity check, there's no hurry to start charging. Well, yeah, let me just check that the other side is still under evacuation. So yeah, this is still good. 181 is not bad. So then, gauge over here, I'll go ahead and, yeah, let me swap to this now. I'm gonna go ahead and break the vacuum now. So let me just show you the micron gauge one more time, so that we can do it before and after I open the vacuum. And I do need to isolate this gauge. Yeah, I can just turn that knob. Probably want a ladder, but we're still at 217 microns right now. Let me see if I can get this off and show you one more time. So that's it right there, 217, 216.8. All right, and then we'll get a ladder, because, well, it won't rise that quickly. I'll have plenty of time, I think. The main thing is just not to let liquid in here, so let's open this valve and listen for any problems. Maybe not that one. I tighten the crap out of these things, so I'm just gonna slowly go up in size until I don't feel like I'm gonna mess up my valve here. Heck yeah. Let's point that gauge up so that we can read it nice and easy. Should start dropping as soon as I crack this completely. There it is. I'm actually going to fully backseat it. There's no need to be accessing the vacuum. Just isolate it from the vacuum pump. Even though it's already isolated at the port. Look at that pressure, man. That's crazy. So we're gonna watch this, make sure you can see that we've got flow in there, but no liquid yet. I'm just gonna keep opening the valve while that's going on. So if we had liquid, we'd want to close this valve immediately, because this will stop the flow without so much trouble as the service valve. I have the service valve open and we are only flowing gas. You can actually see the little bit of oil left in the sight glass moving around. That's good. We don't got any liquid going up. And now we'll fuel our tanks. They haven't cooled down yet, but I can definitely hear the flow. Let me just check all these, make sure we're not leaking. Nice and cold. So our gas is cold as hell. This saturation, 15 psi. Let's check that. Let's check what that would be. Let's see here. Rev tools. Let's see. We've got 513. If I remember correctly. Yeah, 513A. R513A, and we've got PSI gauge, so it's 14.8, 14.8. So we're at 8 degrees Fahrenheit, which means that if we had liquid going in there, it's boiling at 14.8.